Hey there, welcome to Jeremy Davis Books. Today we're doing an under 5 on Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. This is the first thing I've read by James Baldwin. He's been on my to-read list for a very long time, but you know how it is, things just keep like jumping in front. People say you gotta read this, you gotta read that. It's taken me a long time to read it. I'm sort of ashamed of that, and actually shame is a big theme in this book, but it's so good. It's so good and so sad. And even though it was written in the 50s, it actually is quite timely right now because it's about this young man who can't figure out how to reconcile who he is with what he believes a man is supposed to be. He spends the whole book struggling with that, and he basically tries to evade the question of how to do it, and he doesn't do very well at evading it. And eventually he literally runs away to Paris to try to get away from it. And as you can probably imagine, it doesn't go that well. But the writing is beautiful and it's dense. This is not the kind of book you want to read before bed because you won't really process much of it. But it is gorgeous writing and it's so insightful and honest. I'll read this little passage at the end of the first chapter here. What happened was that, all unconscious of what this ennui meant, I wearied of the motion. Wearied of the joyless sea of alcohol, wearied of the blunt, bluff, hearty, and totally meaningless friendships, wearied of wandering through the forests of desperate women, wearied of the work which fed me only in the most brutally literal sense. Perhaps, as we say in America, I wanted to find myself. This is an interesting phrase, not current as far as I know in the language of any other people, which certainly does not mean what it says, but betrays a nagging suspicion that something has been misplaced. I think now that if I had had any intimation that the self I was going to find would turn out to be only the same self from which I had spent so much time in flight, I would have stayed at home. But again, I think I knew at the very bottom of my heart exactly what I was doing when I took the boat for France. The whole book is like that, this rich, beautiful writing. And at the heart of it is this really tragic story. You come to find out that David, this young man, is so full of confusion and self-hatred, and it just radiates out of him and spews onto everybody and everything around him, and it's just so sad, and it's very depressing, but so good. And it reminds me of my favorite thing about reading. I mean, I've never had to deal with any of the problems that David has to deal with in this, but these problems are so perfectly and honestly rendered in this book that it gives me a little bit of the understanding of it. It makes me more empathetic to it, which is really why reading is so awesome. It just helps us spread empathy. So anyway, 5 out of 5 stars for Giovanni's Room. Read it, take your time with it. It's only 160 some pages, but it took me like a week and a half, 2 weeks to read, and I'm so glad I took the time to do it that way. Read it, it's so good. Next up, we've got Piranesi by Susanna Clark. So look for that in a week or two. And thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.